Hey everybody, Garcia here, and today I'm taking a look at the latest in the deck building series of games, Dale of Merchants. This is Dale of Merchants 3, the Grand Continental Railway. If you are familiar with Dale of Merchants, the original, or Dale of Merchants 2, or Dale of Merchants Collection, then you are familiar with this game, okay? I think you should still watch the very beginning of the overview so that you can see what these different characters do. A little brief explanation of what they do. But if you are very familiar with it, my overview will be the game. This is going to be a deck building game in which you shuffle up a few families of characters together, these cute little critters, and then you are going to be playing a deck building game in which you spend your cards to buy more cards, you trigger abilities with those cards, and you build stalls in front of you. You are trying to have a number of stalls. When you get to the 8th stall, you immediately win the game. There's no scoring in this game, none of that. Somebody simply triggers the end, and they win, okay? So let's go ahead and take a look at how this works, and I'm going to see you on the other side for my final thoughts. In the box, you are going to get a board, which is double-sided. You get a stack of junk cards, and then you get 6 character piles here. One of them has this die here. So we're going to go through them very quickly, okay? At the beginning here, we've got the desert monitors. They're all about the discard. They allow you to manipulate that. Discard cards from your hand, pull cards from the discard back in, thin out the discard, things like that. These characters over here, the white-headed lemurs, are all about thinning out your deck. They throw away a lot of cards. So they're going to, most of the cards, in fact, say, pick a card, find a card, whatever, and throw it away, meaning remove it from the game. We've got the magpies over here. They're all about guessing at something and then going from there if they get it right. Pull a card from your opponent's hand, guess the number before you look at it. If you're right, steal it. Things like that. There's a lot of stealing going on. They are magpies. We've got the echidnas over here, and their thing is borrowing, as the game calls it. You get to do things like take 2 cards from your opponent's hand, swap one of those 2 with one from your own hand, and give him back the 2 cards. So they are going to be messing around with things, switching cards from your hand, from the lineup, things like that. So, borrowing in the loosest sense of the word. We've got over here the hares. They have this die over here, and basically their thing is you're going to get some effect based on the die. So the card might say, draw a card from, and then you roll the die, and depending on what you get, it'll say from your deck, from the pile of cards, which is a free bonus card, or from nowhere. And then lastly, we've got the tree kangaroos over here, which are all about stashing, protecting your cards. They are going to allow you to store a card face down on many of their own cards, and then at the beginning of your next hand, you have a full hand of cards, you also take the one you stored back into your hand. So they let you basically put things on hold and then come back to them. They also do a little minor bit of deck thinning as well. So there you go. That's everything you are going to get in the box. Let me go ahead and set up a game and show you how that's going to play out. For a game of 3, that means we're using 4 of the character decks. We've shuffled them up, and everybody has a starting deck made up of the number 1 from each of the 4 characters, and then the rest are junk cards to bring us back up to 10. So right now, 4 ones, and then 6 junk cards. Everybody shuffles up. You draw 5 cards. Everybody would do that. And then you are ready to begin. So on your turn, you are going to take, you're going to have an action phase and then a cleanup phase. During the action phase, you perform 1 action. During the cleanup phase, you refill your hand back up to 5, and you slide cards over and refill the market. So the actions are as follows. You can take a market action, which means buying one of these cards. The cost is the strength of the card, the value of the card, plus any modifier based on where it is. If I want to acquire this card, for example, it's going to cost me 4 plus the 3 right here for 7. The way you pay for them is with the values of the ones in your hand. Obviously, at the beginning of the game, I only have 1s, so I could buy this one for 5. I could buy this one for 3 plus 1 for 4. Cannot buy that at 6, 7, or 6, okay? So I could do that, and I discard the ones I want. Do my discard pile. The one I'm buying goes right into my hand. That's 1 action. Second action, you can do the technique action, which is building one of your stalls. The way that works is you are going to put cards from your hand in front of you in your stall area of increasing value. So the first one has to be a 1. The second one has to be a 2. And the third one has to be a 3, or cards that added up equal 3, and so on. If they are combinations of cards, they must come from the same group of characters. And as soon as anybody builds the 8, then you win the game. That's how you win. So that could be your action. If your last one was a 4, putting in a 5. That could be a single 5 or a 2 and a 3 of the same family. Boom. Next up, we've got the technique action. Actually, the stall action is what I just described, okay? The technique action is playing a technique card. And many of the cards are going to say technique on them, and they do some ability. Some of them are going to have up here in the banner on the top corner a plus sign below the family symbol there, the character symbols. That means after you do that technique, you then, once it's completely resolved, discard the card, and you can take an additional action. And then lastly, what's called the inventory action, which is simply discard cards from your hand that you don't want, so that you can draw new ones, okay? So it's kind of a pass, but you're allowed to discard. And again, draw back up to 5, refill. So on my turn, I would take a look at my hand here. I've got 2 characters from 2 of the families. So this one over here, the Clever Guardian, says, I can store 1 card from my hand at the start of my next turn. I place the stored card into my hand. That would mean I do this, I store 1 on there, it has the symbol, so I have to take another action. I'm not going to do that because these are all, well, weak early cards. This one, for the Carefree Swapper, it's called, says, swap this card with a top card from another player's discard pile. Place the new card into your hand. That means I could take a 5 or something fantastic with this 1. I'm obviously also then giving them this card so they could do it back to me if they get around to it. So that's what I've got. I'm going to go ahead and discard 4 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4 into my discard pile, and I want to buy this card. I buy it, I put it right into my hand. I am then going to go into the cleanup phase where I refill my hand back up to 5. And I am going to scoot these over, draw a new one, and then that player would go. They have their hand of 5, they do one of those actions. Let's say they buy this. Alright, that goes in their hand and they refill. Then that player is going to go, and they're going to buy this one. They want to buy that one for 4 plus 1, for 5 as well. So they're both emptying their hands entirely. It comes back around to me. So when it comes back around to me, I've got this new card in my hand now. And this one is a technique. It says, draw 3 cards from your deck. You may throw away one of them. Place the rest back in any order. That's pretty good. Let's see. If I do that, it gives me another action. I'll still have enough left in my hand to buy this grasp card. So I think I will, because that's a good way to get rid of some of this junk. The junk, by the way, has a value of 1, and it never lets me, I can never put that into stalls. So that's a good way to do it. Draw 3 from your deck. 1, 2, deck is empty, so I will reshuffle if I need to draw any more. And I draw the third one. Take a look at these. It says you may throw one away, so I'm going to throw this junk card away and put the rest back in any order. Fine, I'll put them back like so. And I have another action. Now now that it's fully resolved, it goes into my discard pile. And I get to take another action. I'm going to do a buy action, 1, 2, 3, 4 for this one, which is going to go into my hand. And this one says choose one random card from another player's hand. If you guess its value, place it into your hand. Fantastic. Do that. And I need to make sure I draw back up to 5. 3, 4, 5. And this is going to continue. Perhaps when it comes back around to me, instead I'll build one of my stalls. And I'll just put this aside. It's the number 1, so it'll build my first stall. And then later on in the game, perhaps I'll have this card in my hand and I'll build a stall 2. Perhaps after that, if I had this one, I could build the stall 3, and so on. Obviously, these cards are coming from your hand, okay? It's something I bought, and now I'm getting out of my deck, and I am therefore weakening my deck the more stalls I build. Therein lies the game, right? The closer I get to victory, the worse my deck is at achieving other things I may need to do along the way. So there you go. That's basically the general flow of the game. As soon as somebody gets to the 8th stall and they build that one, Game is immediately over, and that player wins the game. So let's go ahead and go back up top. Let me tell you a little bit more about what I think of this game, Dale of Merchants 3, and what I think of it compared to the previous games that have come out in the series. I am a fan of Dale of Merchants. I have all of them now. I keep them in that beautiful big collection box, and but this is the latest one. That collection box, even though it mentioned and referenced this came out later, okay? It was a Kickstarter for it. I jumped on that because I really liked it, and it is it's out now. It's been out for a bit. So what do I think about this one generally? And then I'll tell you what I think of it in comparison to the other ones. Okay, from the top, the theme, very cute, very attractive. It's got cute critters messing with each other, building their stalls, doing some strange cartoony bartering and trading and commerce, right? So I really like the theme here. I think it's very lighthearted and silly, but engaging and enjoyable. The aesthetics are stunning in this game. I love this artwork. It's from the same person as the designer, by the way. It's the same gentleman who is doing the artwork and the game design. And I suppose, it's if you look at the artwork and you like it, then you like it because it's all from the same illustrator. And I really do. I think it's a charming, beautiful, captivating little world. The animals look cutesy, but not overly sugary. So I think it's great. It's just beautiful. On top of that, the quality of the production here is stellar. These are some of the best quality cards I think I've ever seen in a game. Amazing linen finish. The snap on the cards is wonderful. Board is very nice. The die is a nice wooden die. It's lightly engraved, so I'm not worried about it. Yeah, it's very good. Replay value here. Obviously, this is going to shine the most when it is combined with the other sets, okay, in Dale of Merchants. This is both a game and an expansion. As a game on its own, it suffers a bit from that replay value. The characters in this group are going to, because they won't be shuffled with anything else available out there, again, in a vacuum, there's going to be usually a specific sort of feel to the game. That feeling is fairly confrontational. It's going to be a lot of stealing, a lot of peeking at cards and taking one, a lot of messing with your opponent's deck and discard and all that stuff, right? That's how this set tends to come across, especially in comparison to the other ones. And they had confrontation in those too, but this one seems like that confrontation has been sprinkled among more of the characters, okay? But if you are someone who is looking at this as an extension to your Dale of Merchants already, fantastic, okay? Game arc. Nice rising tension, great balance, right? The balance here between buying and building and using a card instead to boost you up and prepare you for next turn, or pulling your opponents back a little bit. Finding that balance is where the game lives. That is key. That is what it's all about. And I think it's very fun. Again, as some of the players around the table get a little bit closer to the 8th stall, you start to sweat a little bit. You start to worry, okay, well, do they have the steam to get all the way there before I'm ready to counter that? That's great game arc. Ease of play is very high, especially for this set, I have to say. You expect, when games come out with more and more content, you expect that then the 4th release, and this is actually the 4th release, even though it's called this, for all of the decks of characters to be very complex, right? For there to be a lot of little exceptions and minutiae and ways to find new design space, right? The kind of things you would have seen in, say, Dominion, the first Dominion set, compared to the 4th Dominion set or the 8th or the whatever, is going to be simpler because they have to add more stuff to make the cards distinct. I think this might be the exception to what seems to be a rule, in that all of these decks are fairly straightforward. For me, there's very little or possibly no referencing the rule book when I play for this one. And some of the other ones I still need to go, wait, how do these owls work again? What do these chameleons copy what? From some of the other sets. In this one, I don't have any of those issues. So I think it's very easy to play. Lastly, tactics, luck, strategy. Again, a big part of this set is messing with the other players. You need to know that going in if you intend to use this as a standalone product. Do you like that in your deck building games? Or do you want to be left alone? If you want to be left alone, this set is perhaps not the one for you, because there's a lot of that kind of manipulation going on, okay? I think when it's sprinkled among the rest of the sets, it adds a nice flavor. But you don't necessarily want to have a spoonful of saffron, right? And perhaps that's how you would see this. I like it myself. I think the sets in here combine nicely. A lot of the some of the attacking ones can be countered by some of the ones that let you store card. When a card is stored, it cannot be messed with. Some of them let you manipulate your discard so that the top card is pulled out of there and the opponent across the table can then steal that top card from you. So I think the responses to the threats are built into this box. I'm just saying generally the box has a confrontational feel. I don't dislike that. It's not that mean. It's part of this game, okay? Perhaps you, though, won't like it as much. I will say, okay, to conclude here, if you gave me all of these sets in a vacuum, I rate all of the other ones a 7, okay? And in all of those ones, including the collection, some of the animals I am less than enthused about. Some of them I find a little too complex, they slow down the game, they take too much to explain, they are confusing by their very nature. I had none of those problems with this set. I will happily play with any and all of 6 that come in here. Which means this is my favorite set. So I'm going to rate this one an 8 out of 10, okay? It's one whole point, in my opinion, more fun, engaging, and simple and straightforward than the rest. And I would recommend, in fact, if you don't mind that confrontation and you just want a taste of this game and you don't know which one to get, 3. 3 is, I think, the best one in a vacuum. On its own, as long as, again, the confrontation is not a problem, I think this one is great. All the cards in here work well together. They have a great flavor and great synergies, and it's going to give you a fun time. So there you go. Still, at the end of the day, the ultimate experience here is using this as an expansion to everything that came before it. But if that's not what you're looking for, and you just want one thing, I do still think this is the one thing. It's much cheaper than the collection. That's a big old giant box. And some of those characters I don't like. 1 or 2. But still, these are all fantastic. So there you go. Devil Merchants 3, 8 out of 10, folks. Seal of approval. My name is Z Garcia. I'm going to see you on the next one.